I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
What is going on, everybody? We have made it to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. A couple teams still in it that I don't think any of us really expected to be in it. We hoped, but they have defied all odds and have made it in here. We've got Dennis here with me. Matt is taking care of some stuff today, so he will not be able to join us. The old crew back together again, previewing the divisional round of the playoffs. No real NFL news to go over with. I guess we can touch on the one head coach hire that is technically confirmed now. But outside of that, not much else but playoff football. Dennis, how you doing today?
You know, I'm doing fantastic. Got the next 3 days off. Big Dynasty Nerds meeting on Saturday. Cub Scout stuff to take care of tomorrow. Browns playoff on Sunday. I'm going to be waking up Monday morning good and tired.
I was going to say, I heard the rumors and the rumblings that a big meeting is going down up there in Ohio. Here, possibly only good things coming from that. So excited for you guys. Should be a whole lot of fun. As Garrett posted, I believe his words were, every time you guys have one of those meetings, something bigger and better comes out of those things. So should be very interesting. If you guys aren't a part of the Nerd Herd, you should become a part of it now, especially with all the film room stuff they've dropped. I know Garrett, Jared, and Nick did a show the other night. I don't think it's been posted yet, but they broke down Javonte Williams, who is in my opinion, one of the great running back prospects in this draft, which I'm sure will pop up on the YouTube channel. You got Rich and Matt and Garrett doing a bunch of YouTube stuff now. Jordan with IDP, and I believe Marvin did one the other day for free agents, didn't he?
He did a wide receiver breakdown.
Gotcha,
so.
Wide receivers. So, yeah, I mean, all kinds of YouTube content going on there. You guys definitely check them out. Me and Dennis, obviously, and Matt, although Matt doesn't do quite as much writing for them as me and Dennis handle over there, but Matt is a part of it as well. We're all proud, I think, to be part of the Dynasty Nerds brand. So definitely check them out as well with all the stuff they've got going on. So I guess let's jump off and talk about the head coaching hire so we can just dive right in and talk about playoff football. Has it actually been – okay, look at that. Right now, Ian Rappaport, deal is done. So there you go. Perfect timing. Thanks, Ian. I knew he was tuning into the podcast. I appreciate you dropping that knowledge on us now. Urban Meyer is officially the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I know I talked about it a little bit with Matt on one of the Monday shows when the rumors first came out. You know, I like Urban a lot. I'm very happy for what he was able to do for the Ohio State University and bringing that national championship to them. I'm not 100% sure that I think the offense he likes to run will work out in the NFL. That being said, doesn't mean he can't hire it and bring in an offensive coordinator that runs a different kind of offense. I do think Urban is a great leader and coach of men. So I do think he can be a very good overall head coach. I think that's, as a lot of people are pointing out, really good news for James Robinson with the way he loves to use running backs, at least the way he did in college. And I will say right now that I don't think there is any shot that Urban Meyer takes Justin Fields. I think that it is all Trevor Lawrence locked up as the number one pick, even with Urban going to Jacksonville. What are your thoughts on Urban Meyer heading to Jacksonville to become their new head coach?
You know, a lot of it's going to depend on the offensive and defensive coordinator hires for me. He's notoriously a micromanager and type A, buckling down on everything. You know, he coached the special teams. He's that guy that has to, you know, he's like Nick Saban in that regard. And my concern is that he's going to bring in an offensive coordinator and then be over their shoulder on every little thing and trying to do things that aren't going to necessarily work as well in the NFL as they did in college. I've seen some talk on Twitter today about, imagine Laviska Shenault in Curtis Samuel's role at Ohio State. That's great. But is it going to work as consistently as it did at Ohio State? Jacksonville was the Indiana of the NFL for the last few years.
Yeah.
That works really well against Indiana and Northwestern. But when you're Indiana and Northwestern, so I agree with you on Fields. They're going to take Trevor Lawrence. I think Shad Khan wants Trevor Lawrence, and I think whoever he hired was going to take Trevor Lawrence. So can he be successful? Yes, but he's going to have to do something antithetical to what he's been, which is step back and let his coordinators run things and let them run it their way. And if it doesn't work out, then get new coordinators. Don't step in and take over and micromanage. So if he adopts and settles into that CEO role, could be great. I'm not real concerned with him grabbing a bunch of guys from Ohio State to join his staff. The one guy I am concerned is Brian Hartline.
That's my
Hartline.
Yeah.
He was an NFL receiver for a long time. He knows the NFL. Now, he's extremely successful at Ohio State. But, you want to go to the highest level, and that's the NFL. And when, you have a relationship with somebody like Hartline has with Meyer, it's really easy to say, yeah, I'm going to come in there. And honestly, having a wide receiver room starting off with DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault, that's pretty good to work with if I'm Brian Hartline. So that's really the only guy that jumps to mind that I'm concerned about him taking. But we'll see. He's the first one of the vacancies, so he gets to, his choice of who he wants is on the coaching staff because 5 other teams are still trying to find their coach. They have some work to do. So luckily they've got some picks and they've got a couple young pieces, and it'll be interesting to watch. I wish him success, especially since I don't have any 101s. I hope that there's just enough success that James Robinson, who I acquired a fair amount of shares of last offseason, and DJ Chark, hopefully they can excel in his offense.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the guy that everybody is the most excited about, and I would be too. I mean, obviously, he had guys like Zeke and Dobbins who were all world talents to begin with that succeeded in that offense, but Mike Weber looked really good in that offense as well, and I think it's fair to say he's not quite up to those guys, and I would say that James Robinson's better than Weber. He had guys when he was down in Florida as well. Nobody's coming to the top of my head at the moment, but he's done a very good job of making running backs look good in his scheme. So I really do think James Robinson's going to be the one that or possibly has a chance to succeed the most from this hire. I do think, I'm with you on the Brian Hartline thing. The one thing I hope, and me following Brian Hartline on Twitter, he seems to talk a lot about how much he respects and loves Ryan Day. And there's a lot of, I know you probably saw it earlier in the season with everybody saying Ryan Day might be leaving, and Brian Hartline would retweet every time someone would say that and just start laughing and be like, Ryan Day is not going anywhere. So maybe that's a good thing, and that those two maybe have that connection as well, because obviously Meyer was the one who brought Hartline on, that maybe those two have developed a connection in Hartline and Day, so he doesn't leave, because I'm with you. With the way he's developed wide receivers at Ohio State, it would be a huge loss. I think the only person I saw was Corey Dennis, which I believe is his son-in-law, if I'm remembering correctly, Urban Meyer's son-in-law. So that I could see him leaving. He's the quarterbacks coach at Ohio State right now. I would think he's probably would go and join Meyer with the coaching staff in Jacksonville, especially with Meyer, who's always talking about wanting to be close with his family and everything like that. Obviously, he would be able to take the grandkids down there to Jacksonville. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't see anybody else outside of probably those two leaving the Ohio State program, and like you said, first hire, so he's going to get his pick of a lot of people. It's going to be interesting to see how he fills out that staff. I'm with you on the Laviska thing as well. I mean, look, he did it at Colorado too, so he might be successful in that, but you're going to have to figure out different ways to do it, because it's not going to be quite as successful as we saw Curtis Samuel doing it at Ohio State. But it's an interesting hire, and I'm with you. I'm rooting for him as well. Like I said, I've got nothing but love and respect for him for what he did at Ohio State and for Ohio State. I think he helped put them back on the map in a big way. But I'm just curious to see how that works out. I'll be rooting for him, though. I think it's kind of fun to see Jacksonville as a successful team. Like they were, seems like forever ago. What was that, 4 years ago that they almost made it to the Super Bowl with Blake Bortles? So, I mean, it'd be fun to see them succeeding again. All right, so for the divisional round games, we've got 2 on Saturday and 2 on Sunday. The early afternoon game on Saturday, we've got the 10-6 Rams who are going up against the Green Bay Packers. I actually think all 4 of these games have a chance to be really good games, which is fun because it's been a couple years we've seen some of these divisional games not be close. This one specifically, I think, matches up very interestingly. So for the Rams, you got Donald is on the injury report with the ribs, but McVay did come out today and say that I believe he quoted or put him as the Terminator or something like that, and he'll be good to go. Yeah. So we know Donald will be out there. Kupp's still dealing with the knee. Walford is out with the neck. And then obviously Goff is still dealing with the thumb, but he is expected to be the quarterback. For the Packers, we've got Lazard with the wrist, St. Brown with the knees, Darius Smith with the ankle thumb, which I do think is big questionable because he's huge for that defense. Obviously, the big matchup here is we've seen how good the Rams have been running the ball, and that's definitely the Packers' biggest weakness on defense is stopping the run. Their defense against the pass is phenomenal. I think they'll be able to do a good job of locking down Woods and Kupp, especially with Goff struggling. That big matchup is going to come down to that defensive line and those linebackers going up against Akers and that offensive line. What are your takeaways from this game?
Yeah, that's where my concern lies as well. The Packers gave up the 6th most fantasy points to running backs in the NFL. So I know we're a little more off of fantasy and more on to regular NFL football right now. But if you're giving up fantasy points, that means you're giving up yardage and touchdowns and receptions to running backs. So it's going to be it's going to come down to whether or not Woods and Kupp can perform. If Alexander and who's the other cornerback there in Green Bay?
I can't even tell you. I love Jair. He's the only one that I ever really think about. Let's see. I can pull it up.
So if they're shutting down Woods and Kupp, then you've got the interior of the defense line and linebackers able to key on Akers. And so now all of a sudden the options are limited. Josh Jackson. So, I like McVay's ability to plan, though lately it seems like his ability to adjust his plan isn't quite up to snuff. So it'll be an interesting situation. I think that the Devontae Adams and Jalen Ramsey matchup is going to be a good one as well. I think Adams gets a little bit of that just because Ramsey's a little bit bigger and probably, one of the best cover cornerbacks, if not the best cover cornerbacks in the NFL. Adams is just so shifty. He creates space. So that's going to be really an opportunity to see. If that goes away, then the Rams are really weak against the tight end. So we could see a whole bunch of Bobby Tonyan going on this weekend against the Rams if Ramsey is able to shut down or contain. I wouldn't, I think if Ramsey and the Rams come out with Devontae Adams catching, 8 balls for 85 yards and maybe 1 touchdown, that is something I think that they would consider a win.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I do expect, obviously, those two to match up most of the game. I think the one thing that works in Adams' favor is that LaFleur moves him all around. He won't always be on the outsides. He'll be in the slot, and I don't think Ramsey will move. He usually doesn't shadow into the slot. So I think that when he moves into the slot, you might not see Ramsey on him, but otherwise I think that's kind of one of the more exciting matchups of the weekend because, especially with the way Ramsey's been, he's been, excuse me, phenomenal this year. He saw him kind of struggle a little bit last year. Maybe that was dealing with the injuries in Jacksonville, then getting traded over to the Rams and not really knowing that defense entirely and kind of getting used to it. But this year, he's been the guy that we all expected him to be and has been throughout his entire career. So that's going to be huge. For the Packers side of it, we know that the Rams defense, I mean, they're the number one defense in the NFL right now. And so if you're shutting down Adams, like I know you just said, obviously Bobby Tonyan is kind of where they're weak. But usually Aaron Rodgers' next checkdown guy is Aaron Jones. And the Rams this year go all the way back to week 3 before you can find a running back that they have given up 85 rushing yards against. I mean, that's how good this defense has been against the run. So what are you expecting out of Rodgers and Aaron Jones, especially if Adams does get shut down?
Well, I think it'll come down to Lazard and MVS and Tonyan stretching. They're going to have to make plays 20 yards downfield. They're going to have to convert down there. And right now my money's going to be on Tonyan to be the one because that's where the Rams are weakest. MVS, at least twice, MVS is going to get behind that Rams defense. Whether he catches the ball or not is a real crapshoot, which is so unfortunate because, man, he's like a great big giant Deshaun Jackson, if he could just catch the ball consistently. I mean, 6'3", 220 pounds, 4'3", 940. If he just was consistent with his hands. But he's going to get behind him. Lazard is going to work a little bit closer. I still think regardless of how tight, Devontae is going to get his. And the Rams against the run, you said going back all the way back to week 3. So they're third fewest fantasy points against wide receivers. They did give up 81 receptions to wide receivers, though, which is fourth highest of the playoff teams left. So Jones is doing a lot of work in the receiving game.
Yeah.
And he's so dynamic. It's going to be a great matchup. I love Aaron Donald. The Rams linebackers have been getting it done. Micah Kaiser and those guys. Who's the one guy? Equibom just makes those. He makes those.
Right.
Brockers is the defensive tackle.
Okay.
Yeah, Equibom, or I forget how you pronounce it exactly without looking at it, but he just makes a splash play. He may not be as consistent, but he makes some splash plays. And with Bakhtiari out, that's going to be I think a point of attack for the Rams.
Yeah.
The big thing, the edge. Aaron Rodgers is the edge.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna take him probably 2 drives, and he'll have deciphered what the Rams are doing. And then he's going to make plays. It's just, can they make plays on the other end of the ball?
That's going to be the big thing. The X factor is Aaron Rodgers, because you've got, and you just mentioned it. I don't know how many people have been talking about. That was kind of what I was looking at. Bakhtiari being out is huge. And they brought in the offensive lineman from the Indianapolis Colts this past weekend who ended up unfortunately getting COVID, is now on the COVID list. So they're not even being able to use him. And so Aaron Rodgers is definitely the X factor because you've got Aaron Donald and those guys going up against him. I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup. I don't expect the Packers to put up the amount of points that they've been putting up, but I am picking the Packers to win this one. I think they find a way to pull it out just because I think that offense is going to be a little bit better. Like you just said, I think it's going to be putting the pressure on the Rams offense to not necessarily keep up, but to try and keep pace at least a little bit with the Packers. And I don't think that they can do that, at least in the passing game, because I agree. I think they're going to try and focus in on trying to stop Akers. And I'm not sure that, Kupp and Woods will be able to do that much against Alexander and Jackson. So I'm taking the Packers. Matthew Fox, he picked the Packers as well. Who are you taking?
It is a clean sweep.
All right. Next up, the night game, for Saturday, the 11-5 Baltimore Ravens at the 13-3 Buffalo Bills. Marcus Peters questionable for Baltimore. On Buffalo's side, we know Zach Moss is out with the ankle injury. Cole Beasley dealing with the knee, Diggs the oblique, and Edmonds the knee. All questionable, but all should play. Ravens were the regular season's hottest team in December. They came into the playoffs riding a high. They kind of peaked right at the perfect time. Do you think that they can keep it going against this Buffalo Bills defense? A lot like the last game we just talked about. Buffalo's strength is the passing defense. Their weakness is the rushing defense, and that is exactly what Baltimore's strength is on offense. So it's strength versus strength in this game.
It's going to be a challenge. I know there was some call for they expected snow, but now it's looking like the snow isn't really going to affect it. I think the passing game with Edmonds dinged up a little bit, I would expect Mark Andrews to do his thing there in the middle. With Moss out, still on the Ravens side of the ball, it depends on if the Ravens are going to, can they figure out to give the ball to J.K. Dobbins? Come on. Can J.K. Dobbins have the ball already? Give him 20 carries. It's the playoffs. Let's just try it. Let's see. But, if it's cold and wet and slippery, the offense has the advantage, and the Ravens, Lamar is a more dynamic runner than Allen, and Dobbins is a better runner than Singletary. I think I think it's going to be a very close and hard-fought game. Yep. If it's windy, Josh Allen is going to have the edge in the passing game because he's got the big arm. And it could be a game, if the weather turns bad, it wouldn't surprise me if Baltimore only passes the ball 12 times. Because they know they can run it. It's one of those games where if all of a sudden the weather turns and they expect it to be really bad, that they activate Mark Ingram out of the blue. He could be one of those games where we're like, you know what, we're going to need a mutter. We need somebody that weighs 225, 230 pounds that's going to be able to hammer it in there 3 yards in a pile of snow. And, that's Ingram.
Yeah, I think I'm worried because the Bills are the team that I've picked when we talked about. I thought they were the team that matches up perfectly with Kansas City if both those teams make it. And this is going to be a tough matchup for the Bills because you just mentioned it. Dobbins is a much better runner than Devin Singletary. The problem is, I think Baltimore's strength on their defense comes in that secondary, and Beasley banged up. Now, Diggs, I think, can match up with any of them, whether it's Humphreys, Peters, if that whatever in different formations he ends up against Jimmy Smith. I believe Diggs can beat any of them, but those guys can also beat Diggs at time as well. All those guys are extremely talented. Beasley banged up. And Allen, we saw it a little bit in that game last week at the Colts at the end of the game when the Colts were starting to put pressure on him. He started to get a little bit of that hero ball back in, and we saw in that game last year against Texans, and almost cost him the game with that fumble. Do we see that happen again? Because if he does that and this secondary makes a pick, this Baltimore team is good enough to keep the ball away from him. I think it's going to be a very tight game. I think really for me, this is the matchup of the weekend because of the strength on strength. There's really neither one of this. It's the strength on strength that both these teams are going up against. It's going to be really fun to watch. I think you've got two really good young quarterbacks, both in the same draft class, obviously, both kind of not really anybody thought highly of either. Like when the Bills drafted Josh Allen, everybody was kind of like, what are the Bills doing? And then obviously Baltimore trades up to get Lamar at pick 32. And everybody was like, oh, he's, as he loves to say, he's a running back, not a wide receiver. So going to be a very good game between both of these teams. I'm really excited to get a chance to watch this one. For me, I'm going to go Bills. I don't feel great about that pick, but I think it's more because I just want to see them win. I think they're that team this year that I really want to see at least make it to the Super Bowl. I love the way that they've been playing. I'm hoping for their fans that they get to do it. So I'm going to take Buffalo, as is Matt Fox. Who are you picking in this one?
I was debating about picking Baltimore. Because I thought I picked Josh Allen last week, but I picked Lamar last week. trying to be strategic here. I think it's going to be a close game. And what you mentioned, if the Bills are behind by 4 in the last 4 minutes and Allen has the ball, he's trying to make a play and he's been getting knocked around. And it's, if it's a 14-10 game in the fourth quarter with 3-4 minutes left, the pressure's mounting. They haven't been able to move the ball. That's where it's going to get dicey for him.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna stick with Buffalo.
I did forget to mention this. I forgot, Matt, he did send us his stuff. He's the one who does all of our show sheet stuff for us. So he picked the Packers to win 20-17. And then in this one, as I mentioned, he picked the Bills. He picked the Bills to win 27-24. That's what I was actually going to bring up. I completely forgot who the Ravens kicker was for a second in my head. And I was like, hey, at least if it gets close, the Bills have a guy like Tyler Bass who can absolutely drill the ball. And then I'm like, oh, well, actually the Ravens got Justin Tucker. So they don't even have the advantage there either. So yeah, I think that's going to be an amazing game. I can't wait to watch that one. So on to Sunday now, the afternoon game. We've got the 11-5 Cleveland Browns at the 14-2 Kansas City Chiefs. For the Browns, Njoku questionable, but I believe he's expected to play. And then the Browns look like they're getting everyone back from COVID, coaching and player-wise, which is huge for this team. Getting all those defensive guys back. Joe Batonio on the offensive line as well is big. The Browns came in hot, obviously, in that wild card round. Kind of jumped blitz Pittsburgh. Obviously, we talked about it on Monday. 28 points in the first quarter, the most ever scored in a playoff game. Obviously, a lot of that coming from the defensive side. Not necessarily something you can do against Kansas City. Now, I don't mean blitzing them like that and getting up quick, but we saw Ben Roethlisberger kind of come back really, really big on him. And I would think it's fair to say at this point that Patrick Mahomes is better than Ben Roethlisberger at this point in time in their careers. So obviously you're going to have to play a little bit better. Now, again, they are getting a lot of players back. What are your thoughts on this one from Cleveland's side? And then we'll go talk about Kansas City in a minute.
So I think Kansas City's defense is a little bit underrated. They've had to. Frank Clark puts an awful lot of pressure on the quarterback. They've got some good guys there, and it's easy to forget about them because that offense is so explosive. I think the decision is going to be made on whether or not Cleveland is successful holding the ball. If they can run the ball, Kansas City gave up the 9th most rushing yards in the NFL this year, 10th most fantasy points to running backs. It could be another big Chubb and Hunt game. They gave up 93 receptions to running backs. Now, I don't know how much of that is they were just out. They had a 3-score lead and the other team was playing catch up. So obviously they've got a passing back in there. But they still gave up the 9th most rushing yards in the NFL as well, which is substantial. And, Nick Chubb is a grown-ass man. And I think if he's tearing up 4 and 5 and 6 yards, 10 yards a carry, breaking off those chunk plays like that and keeping Mahomes sitting on the sideline, it's going to put a lot of pressure on them. On the Baker and Jarvis are not come from behind matchup guys. Yeah. If for some reason, Greedy not playing the last couple of weeks because he's out with COVID, and Kevin Johnson and our defensive backs are still, they're not on their A game, and all of a sudden, we get Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce running down the field. Let me see here. Cleveland gave up the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends.
Yeah, that's the big one.
So
that's going to be the big matchup.
Oh, and they gave up the 6th most to wide receivers. So Cleveland, if Cleveland can't hold the ball and score on every drive, then they're going to end up being behind and playing from behind, which is going to hamper Nick Chubb and that offense in general, because Baker gets squirrely. He's still, as much as he's improved since last year, he can still get squirrely and make some terrible throws.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll say for Baker, he's done for the most part a good job since about what was that? Probably the bye week. I think he's only thrown 2 interceptions since the bye week. So he's definitely done better. You mentioned obviously they give up a lot of yards on the ground. The Chiefs do. We saw that's how the Raiders were able to beat them earlier this year, and I do think that's the blueprint you have to go on to beat them. So I did a little bit more digging into this game. I apologize to our podcasting audience here.
I wonder why.
Since we're not doing a whole lot of fantasy stuff here, obviously the Browns mean more to me than most of these other teams. So I was looking at this, and some of this I also got from, for any of you Browns fans, you'll know Nathan Zagura, who does the Brown stuff. I got some of this stuff from him as well. He was tweeting about it. I heard him talk about it. So Mahomes is 9. He's only lost 9 games since 2018. I mean, that's 9 games in 3 years is pretty spectacular. If you really look at it, it's only been 7 I should say really only 8 because the second one that he lost this year, he didn't actually play in. So I don't know if they counted that or not. It looked like they counted that as a loss for him. He didn't play in the game, but he is, however, 2-6 when the Chiefs hold time of possession for under 25 minutes. So they're a team that even though they have that quick strike offense, if they're held to under 25 minutes of possession, they lose those games. Those 6 of his losses have come from that. Cleveland's average time of possession this year is 30 minutes and 55 seconds. Goes to what you were talking about with the way they run the ball. They like to run the ball, control the clock. That's Kevin Stefanski's game. It's what they're going to have to do here. I think that part matches up very well for the Browns. What I also think helps out the Browns is what Kevin Stefanski, we've seen him doing really since the bye week. This is also now become an offense where he's shown, hey, we can beat you with the short passing game now too. We've seen Baker's come out and thrown the ball a whole lot more than we have earlier in the season, where if the Chiefs focus on trying to stop Chubb and Hunt, they're going to start using that short passing game. They're just going to keep moving the chains, and then get down in the red zone, still eating up a lot of clock. We've got to see it a little bit in that Pittsburgh game at times. And in the Pittsburgh game in week 16, I think it was the third quarter, they came out on one point. I think it was the first drive of the third quarter and wasted like 6 minutes of the clock. That's exactly what you need to do against a team like Kansas City. You need to waste that time. So I do think that they match up really well. I'm not worried about the Browns scoring with the Chiefs. I think that they can keep it close there. The big thing is going to come down to what you talked about is the defense. That defense has got to come up with a stop, 2 if possible, because if you get into a shootout with Mahomes, I agree. I don't think you can keep up, but a couple of things, obviously Ward coming back. Ward, I think for the most part can run with Hill. My worry with Ward is we saw it with Myles Garrett when he first came back from COVID. He was still a little bit weaker. He talked about how it was hard for him to kind of keep his breathing under control at times. So we don't know how close Ward is to 100%. He was out for 2 weeks because of COVID. Is he close enough to be able to stick with Tyreek Hill most of the game? Because I think he's going to have to be the one. Johnson coming back into the slot, I think is huge because he's been phenomenal this year as well. Whether they put him up against, Kelsey at times, Watkins, Hardman, whomever, I think Johnson will do a good job there. Woods is going to be the key here, and I honestly didn't know. This is what I got from Nathan Zagura. I forgot all about this. I forgot that Woods was the secondary coach for the 49ers in the Super Bowl last year, where he, for the most part, did a very good job of shutting down that team. There was a couple blown coverages that the Chiefs scored on, but outside of that, they did a really good job of holding Kansas City in check. Now, granted, they have a much better defensive team all around in San Francisco than the Browns do, but Woods did a lot of that, and he talked about it. Switched up a little bit last week against Pittsburgh. Up until last week, they had run 1% of cover 2 throughout the year, barely ever using it. Last week in the first quarter alone, they used it 25% of the time. And in each of those times that they used it, every time they used that cover 2 defense is when they got the turnovers on Big Ben. So that was huge. Obviously, that Woods showed things to that offense that they weren't expecting. Studying the tape, didn't see him using that. I think you have to try and do that against Mahomes. Can you? I don't know. Mahomes is he is the best, probably, right there with Aaron Rodgers. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now, so it's not easy, I would assume, to confuse him. Biggest thing, I think, for Garrett and those guys, they got to get pressure on him without blitzing. I look to Mahomes against the blitz. 32 touchdowns, 1 interception. So blitzing him, he's just like Brady, Breeze. He sees where the weakness is. He's going to hit you on it real quick, and you're done. So Garrett's going to have to be that guy who gets pressure on him without bringing the blitz, and then they obviously have to keep him in the pocket because we all know once Mahomes starts extending the plays, it goes into backyard football, and it's hard, even for a guy as talented as Ward, to cover a guy like Tyreek Hill when all of a sudden it's I can go wherever I want kind of thing. So it's going to be, I think, a really good matchup. I don't expect the Browns to get blown out in this one. I do think that they're going to be able to keep it close because of what you talked about and what I was just talking about with the offense. We've seen even when teams focus in on trying to stop Chubb, even if they do it for a quarter, maybe 2 quarters, eventually Chubb gets going and you can't slow him down. And I do think Hunt's going to come out there with a little bit of chip on his shoulder. I just hope he doesn't get too emotional. Sometimes I've seen him, he gets a little too hyped up, and that's when he's kind of fumbled the ball and struggled a little bit. I hope Hunt kind of keeps his emotions in check, but I've already seen him tweeting out all that stuff and about how this is a big game for him as well. So what are your thoughts on the Chiefs side here going up against this Browns team offensively and defensively?
Well, with the Browns being so poor against the tight end, and the fact that all season it hasn't mattered whether you're good against the tight end or not. Travis Kelce is going to catch 10 for 120 and at least a touchdown. That's my concern, is that when they have to convert, it's Mahomes to Kelce. Hill is going to be there to provide the big plays. Mecole Hardman on an end around. CEH out of the backfield. We could see more Lev Bell this game because, he spent most of his career playing in the AFC Beast there. So he's familiar with the Browns. But it's really going to come down to, like you said, pressure. If that offensive line can keep Garrett and Ogunjobi and those guys from getting pressure on Mahomes, and if they get pressure, if they can wrap him up, it really comes down to that. I think that Mahomes is probably going to win more of those battles than he loses. And that's what's going to make it frustrating for the defense is Mahomes being able to convert. I think Rodgers is the comp for Mahomes if I'm talking about play. They're mobile enough. They're fast enough. Young Rodgers, he wasn't afraid to get out there and he'd run it for 20 yards. If you left it open and you had everybody covered, he'd take that. He wasn't like some of these other quarterbacks that were looking for yardage on the run. He wanted to extend plays, and he had the arm to make unconventional throws. Rodgers does, and Mahomes does. And that's really where I think the edge lies. Baker wants to be like that, but he's not as fast. He's not as big, and he doesn't have as good of an arm. And so it's like, but he still tries, It's great that he tries, but I just feel like we're in for, as Browns fans, we need to get ready for the moral victories.
Hey, I told some people today, one of my customers is a huge Ohio State fan, actually has season tickets to the Browns, goes back she flies back every weekend to watch. Obviously, she's not doing it this year, but would fly back and go see the Browns games, has been to multiple Ohio State games. And we were talking about it today. And regardless of what happens, I'm perfectly happy with the way this season went for the Browns. Obviously, I picked them. I think all 3 of us picked them to make the playoffs this year, but I don't think I really believed it could happen. And then it did happen. And then obviously as well, them going and beating Pittsburgh in the first round. I had hoped, obviously me and you picked them to win last week, but there was part of me that really thought that there was a chance it wasn't going to happen. So the fact that it did was an amazing feeling. I'm not expecting them to go out there and beat the Chiefs. If it did, I think I'd party harder than I did last week when they beat Pittsburgh. But if they lose, it's not something that's going to be demoralizing like losing in the past has been. It's one of those things where we know the Browns, they're moving forward now. I can truly believe that even if they go out there and lose to Kansas City on Sunday, that I believe this franchise is finally heading in the right direction. It's not one of those things, well, we'll get them next year kind of thing. I truly believe that we're now going to be able to compete with the top teams in the league. But I'm with you on the Mahomes thing. I think he's, just like we talked about Aaron Rodgers being the X factor for the Packers, he's the X factor for the Chiefs. If you cannot find any way, and when I say what's that very famous quote? You can't hope to stop them. You can only hope to contain them or something like that. Like, that's what they're going to have to do. And I don't even think you can contain Mahomes. It's, can you keep him to like 3 touchdowns? Can you keep him to 3 or 4? Like, you can't have him go out there and throw 6. If you throw 6, you're not going to win. The defense, I do think that they are underrated. And if they can stop Chubb, then I do think they'll be able to make issues for Baker, because Baker, I think he's been phenomenal in this second half, but the one thing I think is working for Baker is they've got nothing to lose, kind of like last week. I don't think they have any pressure on him at this point. Nobody expected him to be here. It's one of those things where Baker can just go out there and play, and I think that's where he thrives when he gets into those situations. So Matt picked the Chiefs to win 31-30, so he's expecting it to be a close game as well. I can't do it. I'm taking the Browns. I can't pick against them. I never do it. When I say that, I truly do believe they have a chance to win this game. I've been telling everybody all week that I think that they're going to pull the upset. I'm not going to back down now. Maybe it's my heart, ruling over my head, but I expect it to be a close game like Matt put on there. I do expect both teams to get into the 30s, but I think the Browns just find a way to squeak it out again. And what's interesting is I actually did have the Browns losing to the Chiefs in this game when we redid our playoff thing earlier. I said, hey, they're going to get there. I think I had them beating I know it wasn't Pittsburgh. It may have been the Raiders. I didn't have Pittsburgh getting into the playoffs. I remember that. So, but I had them losing to the Chiefs in this round, and then I actually had it Chiefs and Baltimore playing in the conference. What is it? Conference finals next week, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm doing it. I'm taking the Browns to win. Who are you picking?
I am taking the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe the Browns have a chance to win. I believe they have a decent chance to win. I just think that we're a year early.
Hey, I can't, like I said, I can't disagree with that. I just, my heart, my head, they tell me two different things. I'm going to go with the heart because I want that to be right. So last game of divisional weekend, the 11-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the 12-4 New Orleans Saints. Ronald Jones is questionable. Evans is still recovering, but he did look good at times last week. Godwin questionable, but is expected to play. For New Orleans, Jared Cook and Latavius Murray are questionable. Traquan Smith has been designated to return, so he should be back. The big one is Taysom Hill. That is a guy that they've been using, obviously, to help Drew Brees, who I think is still trying to knock off some of the rust of being out from getting, just his entire chest and midsection getting blown up with all the broken ribs and collapsed lung. I do think Hill, if he's out, I don't remember I didn't see if he practiced today. I know he did not practice yesterday. If he's not able to practice Friday, that's going to be huge for the Saints. They need him in the way that they've been using him here as of late. But the Saints swept the Buccaneers this year. First game of the season was a fairly close game. The Saints won comfortably, but it was still a good game for the most part. Obviously, that second game on the Sunday night, they blew them out 35-3. Do you have any worries about the Saints? They tend to have fallen apart kind of in the playoffs here the past couple years. And the Bucs, do you think that they might be peaking at the right time?
Yeah, the Saints have had a troubled season, and it's not just Drew Brees getting his ribs shattered in the late in the season. The issues that have gone on with Michael Thomas, the other, they've had a fair amount of COVID issues as well, so they've had people out. To me, I feel like Drew Brees, his arm didn't look great before the broken ribs, and while it seems great, he doesn't throw Michael Thomas only catches 7-yard slants anyways. I get it, but you've got to be able to do some other stuff. I feel like, unfortunately, it's the end of the road for Drew Brees, and they're going to have to be carried by Kamara. Jared Cook is not consistent enough. They've got a good defense. What's his name? Cameron.
Are you talking about Cameron Jordan?
Cameron Jordan has been playing lights out, and they've got some good defensive backs, which they're going to need. So the opportunity is there. I just feel like Tampa, there's just so much firepower on the Tampa side of the ball, even if they're dinged up. Brady's arm isn't what it was either, but I still think he's got more left in the tank. Tampa's defense, the defenses I think are pretty even. I just think I give the edge to the Tampa offense.
Yeah, so I'm with you. It's going to be a very close game. Again, I think all these games are going to be really good. What's interesting is obviously everybody likes to point out, what everybody loves to say is it's hard to beat a team 3 times. But then if you actually go back and look at it, when teams have matched up 3 times, twice in the regular season and once in the playoffs, the team that swept the series wins 65% of the time. That's a pretty good average victory right there. However, I think the qualifier in this one, or the thing that makes this different, is Tom Brady has never lost to a team 3 times in 1 year. So that is something I guess you can put on there. I think it's fair to say earlier in the year, again, I know there was a lot of Tom Brady was working with his guys in the offseason when they weren't supposed to, but still no preseason games, no real practices. We have seen Tampa Bay kind of peaking here in the past half part of the season. Tom Brady's been playing good. So has this offense. And you're right. I mean, Drew Brees, whether it was the injuries, whatever's been going on, he just doesn't look quite to be the same guy. I said early in there, I thought this was going to be his last year in the NFL, regardless if they made it to the Super Bowl or not. And it looks like that's kind of the way it's leaning right now. I just think I believe in Peyton and the Saints a little bit more than I do Tampa Bay. And some of that comes from, and I think I brought it up last week as well, that everybody keeps talking about how good Tampa Bay's offense has been. They didn't look great against Washington last week. I mean, Washington looked good. And I mean, that defense made Tyler Heinicke look like he was Patrick Mahomes out there playing. They made a guy who, no disrespect to Taylor Heinicke, but he's not Drew Brees. And I know Brees has been struggling, but I think I take Brees over Tyler Heinicke at this point every day of the week and twice on Sunday. I think Brees is a phenomenal quarterback, and Heinicke is good for what he does, but he's no Drew Brees. Tampa Bay played a lot of really bad teams down the end of the stretch. Atlanta twice. Detroit Lions secondary was not good. Can't remember who else. There was somebody else in there they played that was just not. Minnesota Vikings secondary. They played a lot of teams with not very good defenses, and they were able to put up a lot of points on them. Well, that's what you do when you play bad teams. New Orleans is not a bad team. I do think that out of all the games, this is right there with Baltimore, Buffalo, and just kind of like a flip a coin, and you're probably going to be right game. Maybe it's, again, same thing I was just saying with the Browns. Maybe it's more if I want to see at least Brees and Peyton get that shot to make it to the Super Bowl by getting to the NFC Championship game. So I'm going to pick the Saints to win. Matt picked them as well, 27-24. I think it's going to be right around the same thing, 30-27, 31-30, something like that. It's going to be a very close game. I honestly think it's whichever one of these quarterbacks gets the ball last is going to find a way to manufacture that drive to win them that game. That's going to be huge. Going to be a great game. Who are you picking, Dennis?
I am going with Tampa Bay.
All right, so you have a chance to make up a game on us because I believe we are all tied at this point because me and you picked the Browns, but he picked someone different than us last week, I think, didn't he? I'm trying to remember what our picks were last week because we all picked Seattle. I know. I should have asked him. I know he picked Seattle. We all picked Seattle, I believe. Did you pick the Rams or did he pick the Rams? I know I picked Seattle.
I don't remember.
So I'm pretty sure we all picked Seattle. And then I know he picked Pittsburgh, but we picked the Browns. So maybe we're one up on him. I can't remember. But I know we were pretty in lockstep with everything else, and most of those games went the way. Oh, look at that. Matt's here. So Matt took Tampa last week. Oh, that's that. You two took Tampa, though. I picked Washington, right? Did you pick Washington? Oh, okay. So we are tied. All right. Okay, so we are tied. So this is our chance. This is Dennis's chance to make up a game on me and Matt here because I'm screwed because I also picked Cleveland. So I have a chance to drop 2 on you guys because you guys both took Kansas City and then Dennis is taking Tampa Bay. So gonna be a good game of weekend. So we're gonna continue with our weekly competition here. So week 2. Matt, since you're there, I assume you're watching. Did you get a chance to do the points up, or we'll wait till next week and go through the 2 rounds of points? Because I didn't see the points on here. I don't like the way my lineup looks right now. I can promise you that. So I don't think I did. I did use Diggs, so I got some good points from him, I think. But outside of that, I'm not feeling great about the rest of my lineup with Rodrigo Blankenship missing like 2 field goals in that game. That kind of hurt me. But Matt's lineup this week, again, this is our weekly competition. You can only use a player once throughout the playoffs. So Matt Fox this week is going Josh Allen, Nick Chubb. He'll have it updated on Monday. All right, cool. I appreciate that. So he going Josh Allen, Nick Chubb, Cam Akers, Michael Thomas, Marquise Hollywood Brown, Rob Gronkowski, the Saints defense, and Mason Crosby. Dennis, who are you taking for your week 2 lineup?
I am going with Josh Allen, Nick Chubb, Cam Akers, Jarvis Landry, Michael Thomas, Mark Andrews, the Tampa Bay defense, and Ryan Suckup from Tampa Bay is my kicker.
All right. And then so we are kind of close on some of these guys. So I'm going Mahomes, because I expect them to lose this week, so I can't use them again. So I'm doing I messed that up. Dang it. Can only use 1 player from each team. I put Kelsey on here too. Damn.
I might have screwed that up then too.
Did you?
Because I took 2 from Tampa. Yeah, I took 2 from Tampa.
And Cleveland.
Yep.
Well, dang. Okay, we got to adjust ours really quick. So you know what? I'll take Mahomes out. I'm keeping Kelsey. I'll go out. No, yeah. Dang it. I can't go. Wait, no, I can't go Baker. I don't want to go Rodgers. Who else? I don't really want to go Breeze at all. Screw it. I'm going Allen. No, you know what? I can't use Lamar. Shit, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to go Allen. Oh, well. Might as well use him. All right, so I've got Josh Allen, J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers, Jarvis Landry, Chris Godwin, Travis Kelce, Will Lutz, and the Packers defense going for me this week. Who you switching out, Dan?
All right, let's see. I'm going to swap in Devontae Adams. So I'm Josh Allen. So what team's that lead me?
Switch your kicker or defense, because those both Tampa Bay. So one of those, that's all.
Okay. So I'm trying to figure out where I'm missing. I think I'm missing. I'm going to go Harrison Butker. I don't have anybody from Kansas City. So I've got Josh Allen, Nick Chubb, Cam Akers, Devontae Adams, Michael Thomas, Mark Andrews, the Tampa Bay defense, and Harrison Butker.
All right. So that will do it for us today. We appreciate everybody who's been listening. Rate, review, and subscribe. Well, I've not said that in probably like a year, and so I keep forgetting to bring that up. But rate, review, and subscribe. We'd appreciate it. You can follow Dennis at culture_coach. You can follow me at SportsFanaticMB. And, of course, you can follow Matt at Nighthawk7734. We will be back on Monday to recap the divisional round, talk about any other news. There's a lot of talk that maybe we'll see more coach hires happen this weekend, with the first one falling. Looks like Salah's gotten a couple of different interviews, so that'll be fun to see who all starts landing in different places. Good luck to anybody in their playoff matchups if you've got a team in it, and we will talk to you guys again on Monday. Enjoy the weekend.
Go Browns.